What is going on, nerds? Today I'm talking about my experience in the Pokemon TCG Louisville Regionals. So, came to the tournament, kind of thinking I would do well. I was going to be playing Zard with my special Incineroar tech that I'll describe the use of later. And then I got there expecting 9 rounds, but somehow there must have been like nearly 400 people who did not show up to the tournament despite being registered. Because somehow it ended up being an 8-round day 1 and less than 2,000 players by a little bit, which surprised me for sure. But also meant I needed 1 less win to make day 2, which meant it would be quite a bit an easier time. Round 1 was kind of tough. I fought Charizard Mirror, which in theory should be a good matchup because I'm pretty good at playing the Mirror. But not only did I not get fully set up, my opponent also played TM Devolution, and playing around that is really difficult. And just kind of cause issues. So I ended up losing round 1, but there have been so many regionals where I lose round 1 and make it to my win-in, so I thought I can do this again. Go to round 2, fight Dragapult, which is definitely an unfavorable matchup. I played pretty horribly game 1. And also, I guess my opponent did too. There were a lot of judge calls on my opponent that I ended up having to make. Most of them ended in warnings because there was some way to reverse, but still. So obviously my opponent wasn't very happy at me, but then we get to the end of the game, and I use Dusknoir for us to both take our last prize at the same time. How that works is you go into a tiebreaker game where you both set up a new game, and first to be ahead on prizes wins. So essentially first to take a prize. Then my opponent called the judge, and there was kind of an argument about whether or not Dusknoir triggers sudden death, which it does. Sadly, in sudden death, I lost a coin flip, and so he naturally got the first attack, and ended up beating me during sudden death, which is really tough. But then I get to game 2 and play it out. I play a lot better and finish on turns. The problem is if I finish after time's called, we can't start another match. So it would end up being a tie because we both won 1 of the games in the best of 3. But my opponent doesn't want a tie. I don't want a tie because ties are essentially losses under the new tournament structure. So my opponent just conceded to me, which very much surprised me because he seemed upset at me throughout a large portion of the game due to judge calls and stuff. But he conceded to me. I guess it helped him too because it also took him out of the tie bracket. He would fight against other players with losses rather than ties, make it a little bit easier to come back. But that was really nice. Then after that, I fought Reggie Drago, which was really an interesting matchup. Definitely Incineroar was relevant in this matchup. But game 1, I was not set up very much, but neither was he. Early game, the only attack he could use was his Tina V Star, so he had to Lost Zone 2 energy just to take a weak knockout. Then I set up my board finally because I could use Fezandipiti, and then he Curums and took 3 more prizes. And he just taken 4 prizes, and I hadn't taken a single one at this point. He just kind of wiped my board. So there wasn't too much I could do, but I realized that he was down all 4 energy switch, he was down Prime Catcher, he was down regular switch, he was down Superior Energy Retrieval, he was down Super Rod, and he was down Double Boss. So I thought, what if I just counter catcher up his Reggie Drago V-Star? Most Dragos want to play 2 switching options, and he's out of most energy recovery if he ever wants to retreat his Drago. Therefore, in theory, it's trapped forever because he already uses V-Star that can get back resources. And it worked. I took no prize the entire game, and yet he ran out of cards in deck because of that strategy. And ended up winning me the game. Which is actually kind of crazy to win the game just by my opponent running out of cards in deck. Then game 2, Incineroar was very relevant, which was pretty much there for Drago, as well as some other decks. If I attach Defiance Band to it, it does 270 and then Burn. And if Burn knocks him out, they can't use Fezandipiti. Now that didn't end up coming out because Jamming Tower shut off my Defiance Band. But 240 is still enough to knock out a Teal Mask Ogerpon. And Incineroar itself is not weak to another Ogerpon. Most of the time if I attack with Zard, my opponent lets respond with an Ogerpon, but with Drago, they can't do that when I'm not weak to Ogerpon. And Drago doesn't do enough damage to KO my Incineroar at all. The highest attack I have is 280, I have 320 HP, which means Incineroar is always surviving like at least 2 turns. This Incineroar pretty much stayed on the field the entire game, which was amazing. Next match, fought Zard Mirror again. Crazy how many Zards and Pults I've been fighting this tournament. And I won. It wasn't super eventful, but I did manage to win the game. Next, I fought Gardy. It was a really interesting list. It had, like, Scoop Up Cyclone, it had Energy Switch. Very odd list. And he ended up, game 1, getting a really quick setup. Like, he goes first, second turn, he gets Rare Candy, Gardy EX, and then he Ionos me. Somehow off Iono, though, I find Rare Candy, Charizard, Boss on Gardy EX. which was ridiculously lucky. I immediately knocked out the Guardy EX he'd Rare Candied up, which completely ruined his setup and just won me the game, essentially. He couldn't even find his Devo in time to use it. I think he might have prized it or something. Then game 2, once again, he goes first, and I get a full board set up immediately somehow. Then he Ionos me. And somehow I got lucky off Iono again. This time, I find Collapsed Stadium to remove one of his routes. Somehow he didn't manage to evolve to Curlias during his turn. Then I managed to find Boss's Orders on another route, and then I have Rare Candy Charizard to knock that one out. So he's just lost 2 routes, and his other one's not even evolved up. Therefore, he has no Curlias in play, somehow. Because he just got bad luck. Eventually, he Devos me, and then a few turns later, I managed to completely set back up despite the Devolution TM. And then at the very end of the game, he tries to win by Ionoing me to 1. And the one card I draw is Arven, which was insanely lucky. I just Arven for Rare Candy. I still have Quick Search available to find the Zard, and just guarantee I win the game. It was insanely lucky. And then next up, I fought a Charizard, but it was a very unique Charizard list. He played Grand Tree, which if you don't know what Grand Tree does, essentially allows you to evolve a basic all the way up to a stage 2 in 1 turn. Has to have been in play for a turn, but evolve to the stage 1, then to the stage 2. Which essentially allows you to immediately turn a Duskull into a Dusknoir, and combined with Thorton is even better, because you can Thorton a Duskull into play and then immediately evolve it all the way up. Now it doesn't trigger something like Infernal Rain, because that only works when you play it from hand, but it's still interesting. The problem is in the Zard Mirror, if he uses the Grand Tree as his A-spec, it also helps me set up my own Dusknoir. So game 1, I used it to set up my own Dusknoir to take 4 prizes in a turn with the combination of Dusknoir and Briar to win the game. Game 2, once again, I used Great Tree to set up my own Dusknoir. He almost won, but essentially what he'd need to win is he'd have to be able to trigger Dusknoir to take 2 prizes on my active Charizard, then find Counter Catcher on my Pidgeot EX, then find Radiant Charizard and Energy, and a Defiance Band to be able to knock out my Pidgeot EX. If he can find all of that, he would have been able to win the game, but it was almost possible, and he didn't find it, so I won the next turn. And then I ended up getting to probably my toughest matchup the whole day, Lugia, which is unfavored, but the worst thing was the Lugia I was fighting was Rahul Reddy, who has been doing amazing with this exact same Lugia 60. At Worlds, he got top cut with it. He got top cut at Baltimore with it. I think the tournament before Worlds was the exact same 60. He also got top cut, or at least did well with Lugia. And so I knew it was a very good player that I was fighting. But I ended up winning game 1. He didn't quite set up, and I definitely set up. And I think I kind of played alright. I didn't play terribly. But then get to game 2, and my opponent happens to get set up while I prize double Pidgeot. And Pidgeot is vital in that matchup, and I just prized both of them. So there wasn't really much I could do. I almost won, but barely missed it. And then game 3 was interesting. I didn't prize double Pidgeot, but I didn't manage to get a Pidgeot established all game, just because I did not draw the pieces I need. Now, I actually would have been able to win, because I was ahead on the prize trade for a large portion, but then he Ionos me into double Fire Energy and Briar, which I can't use any of those cards. And then the Ionos double Fire, and then I top deck Briar. So there was nothing I could do with that hand, which essentially just guaranteed I lost that game, which really sucked. But I was currently 5-2. If I won my last game, I could still make day 2. I fought Raging Bolt, which was a matchup I wanted to hit the whole time. It was probably my best matchup because Incineroar is so good. Not weak to Ogerpon, I can disrupt easily with Unfair Stamp, knock him out with Burn. There's so many relevant ways I can beat Raging Bolt. And then I just played horribly. Game 1, I was almost certainly winning. Until I evolved to Charizard to use Infernal Rain and realized I had a Fire Energy prized, and therefore I could only get 1 Fire in Charizard, and so I completely missed the attack. If I had gotten that attack, I would have won game 1. Went to game 2, I thought, I can come back. This is a super favorite matchup. And then I, at one point, used Forest Seal Stone to find Unfair Stamp, only to realize Unfair Stamp was prize. I did not prize check well. I was tired after 8 rounds. And so ended up losing that game, sadly, due to a variety of misplays, which was really tough because it was actually a really good matchup and should have been quite favored. So sadly did not make day 2. Ended up 5-3. 410th place. So not terrible. Top 512, I think I still got points. Of course, not the optimal record, but still happy with what I did. Of course, happy with how I played except the last round. The last round was completely my fault. But the rest of the tournament I was pretty happy with. It was pretty cool to be able to fight Rahul, and I enjoyed myself. And I'll definitely be going to more regionals at some point. Hopefully there are going to be some nearby. And let me know in the comments if any of y'all went to Louisville and how you did. Very interested to see. Goodbye.